Welcome to the Fat Dad Fishing Show podcast. My name is Rich. I'm the host of this show. Tonight I'm joined by co-host Ed, who is the owner of Captain Hank's Tackle, and Captain Jason Dapra from Blitz Bound Charters. Captain Jason has been guiding fly fishermen for over 20 years. He runs saltwater trips from the Jersey Shore, from Montauk, New York, in a 27-foot center console, and he also does drift boat trips up in the Upper Delaware River and the Catskills for wild trout. And Captain Jason Dapra is on with us tonight, and we're going to really try to focus on saltwater fly fishing and beginner saltwater fly fishing. So kick back, relax. This is going to be a great one. Tonight we have, and let's introduce our guest. We have Captain Jason Dapra of Blitz Bound Charters. How are you doing, Jason?
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me, bud. Hey, Ed.
What's going on, man? Welcome.
Yeah, excited. Welcome. Yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. This is one where I'm going to learn a lot. Like I had briefly mentioned, I have done a lot of saltwater fly fishing. I don't consider myself to be, I'm certainly not an expert. I don't even know that I consider myself to be above novice level, even after all the years, because it was all self-taught. The only thing that I learned from somebody was the cast. I saw Lefty Cray at a show when I was little, and he showed me how to cast, and then I got one of his videos, but that's about it. Otherwise, I'm just not.
I'm worse off than you are.
Yeah, but you know what? So is 95% of the people out there. Yeah, fly fishing is pretty damn cool. It's fun as hell. It has its place. I run a charter business where I'm on the ocean or in the back bay a lot of the time, and I'll look at my guys and say, fly only, Jace, fly only, Captain. That's all I want to do. I'm like, well, maybe you don't really want to catch fish today. It's not. Right. It's not for every single day. You got, it's damn fun when the fish are going, when you have a plan, when you have structure, when you're presenting things. But it's really just, it's a nice choice. It's a nice option to have. And I'll admit there's really nothing like catching a fish on a fly, because you're feeling it. You're feeling everything. You have your line in your hand when you feed a fish. Right. You're strip striking. That's pretty awesome. Awesome stuff.
I love it. I will never forget the first striped bass that I caught, which was actually the first fish that I caught on the fly rod. And it wasn't even big. I could have sworn it was a 40-incher. I think it came in at like 21. I could have sworn
40.
Oh yeah. It shocked me. My adrenaline was going crazy. It's quite the experience. So yeah, we're going to talk all about that tonight. But before we get into that, Jason, will you go through and tell us just a little bit about how you got started in fishing, what your background is, what your experience is? Because you're not, you're on here because we're talking about saltwater fly fishing, and that's one of the big things that you do. But your experience goes well beyond that.
I'd love to. Thanks. I'd love to talk about myself. That's what I just said. Sorry about that, boys. Typical fly fisherman, right?
Yep.
You know what, fellas? I'm sitting in my garage right now. I'm surrounded by, I can't tell you, it looks like a tackle shop. I can't tell you how many fishing rods, whether it's conventional fly rods, tuna rods, largemouth bass rods. Since I was a little kid, my Bible was the Bass Pro Shops catalog. You boys remember that when we were 12, we didn't have the internet back then. So when we were 12, 15 years old, I'd get home, I'd read that, I'd wear that catalog out. So I've always just been so into it. Little kid, I'm probably the only 8th grader ever who told their parents I wanted to own a fly shop someday. That was my thing. I'm like, because I just got into it. I don't know what bit me. I like to do all kind of fishing. However, the fly fishing, no one did it that I knew of. My parents didn't do it. I'd go out fishing with my dad. I'd drag him out. I'd go with my grandmother. She in Pittsburgh. She took me down to the Allegheny River. She loved to fish, but she was dunking worms. I don't know what caught me with the fly fishing, but it did. I don't know. I just dug the flies, actually. I'm like, I want to try to tie one of those things. I want to see what that's about. And it was a real, I'm 50 years old, 52 years old. So when I first started, hell, I was 10, 12 years old. The learning curve was great. I mean, I had no clue what I was doing. And that lasted for a while. Hell, I fished all the way through college, and I'd get progressively better and keep learning about it. A lot of shop time, going into fly shops, talking to the guys. But, now I see guys become proficient in a year because of the internet. They look at every video. They, spend some times out, some guided trips there. A lot of time in in the shops, but the YouTube videos are absolutely killer for people to learn how to tie flies as well.
Yeah, so, they are. And I wish that had been available. Like I said, I had one in-person lesson. It was a seminar on casting. It's not like I was with Lefty Cray and he was saying, "Hey, Rich, come over here and let me show you." No, it was a seminar at a boat show that I was small enough that I could get up front, and I was kind of standing right there watching what he was doing. And then I bought the VHS tapes, so I just burned those up, rewinding and continuing to watch. And then you'd have to run outside in the backyard and try it and not really understand what I was doing wrong because there was no feedback, and it was only what was on the video to help me. But you're right. It's a much different world today.
But I'm kind of glad I didn't have that, to be honest with you. I mean, I can think about all my experience, and fishing has really been the main thing. It's my passion. It's all I think about. And I always say, and my buds will laugh, and you guys probably get it. I've known you 10 minutes, but I guarantee you'll get it. The whole fishing thing, whether it's fly fishing or a certain group of dudes you're in doing with the boat thing and stuff, it's kind of about the hang, because almost as good as being out there catching fish, having this great day, is sharing it with your buddies. Sharing it with your buddies when you get back to the dock, going on the deck to have a drink or something like that. It's kind of a brotherhood. It's a pretty special thing. That's kind of why I love it. That's why, honestly, I would say I'm kind of proud of myself. Not that I'm such a great fly fishing guide or anything like that, but I've kind of made my way. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I'm doing now. It's and I have all these brothers, a few sisters too, who want to do it with me, and we spend our time. So it's a pretty special thing.
It is. It is. We've got one of our sisters in the chat right now, Elle from Heaven and Elle Outdoors. I don't know if you've seen her on Instagram. She's quite the fisher person with especially the fluke and winter flounders, one of her things, and tog. I crowned her the tog queen of last fall, and she said it's all. Yeah, she said it's only because her boat broke, and she didn't have the ability to do everything else she would have done, but doesn't matter. She catches fish. She catches a lot of fish. But yeah, I agree. For me, it's about getting out on the water, and I rarely go by myself anymore. I'm usually trying to get Ed to take a day off. Well, actually, John, who's one of the other co-hosts, is usually trying to get Ed and I to take off a Friday because he has Fridays off. It's real convenient for him. We're burning vacation days, but that's just, I think that's how everybody knows what we're talking about, because everybody's doing it.
I could use a day by myself on the water, to tell you the truth.
Well,
I do. Just my seasons. I'll just, so you guys know, and so the folks out there would know. I have. I'm very fortunate. I live on the New Jersey shore, up a little bit north. I'm in a town called Lincroft, but I will launch out of Atlantic Islands. And not originally from here. I lived on Long Island originally from Pittsburgh, then grew up in Connecticut, made my way to New Jersey. And so I've been fishing here, I think 18 years. I was guiding before that on Long Island. So I think, and you guys know, you're kind of local. It's New Jersey kind of gets a bad rap. I mean, even my parents will kid me sometimes, from Connecticut. They'll be like, "Oh, how's Jersey?" Just saying that. But it's number one, it's a damn good place to live. And number two, it's a damn good place to fish. The season we had here last year with the big bass early in April, tuna in May, 10 miles, tuna, you can see the city, you can see the Verrazano Bridge, you can catch tuna, all the way through. It's really just an exceptional place to fish. And I guarantee you there's no place you have a better chance of catching a 50-pound striped bass on a fly than in New Jersey. It's just not. They're up, they're here, and they're in tight spaces.
Right.
It's you have a good shot at it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the hope for a lot of people. I personally don't know if the 50-pounder is actually on my list of things that I want to get, but man, I'd take a 30-pounder on a fly. I would take that to start off with, baby steps up my way. I might have to get a charter with you.
I'd be happy to catch a rat on the fly, man.
I can't really guarantee a 50, but my trips are funny up here because it's a lot of, when you're on the Jersey Shore, we're gonna have an April bite probably real soon here, which it starts early, and that's mostly in Raritan Bay. It's in back, and it's all because the bunker there. The bunker been there all year. So it's not the best fly fishing opportunity. I'll tell you right now, the dudes who are throwing the flutter spoons and big tsunami shads and stuff like that, that's really going to get it done because they're in 25, 30 feet of water. I still take my fly guys out there. I beg them to drop a flutter spoon or to throw, nice conventional or spinning gear, because it's a lot of fun. Catching a 35-pound fish is better than flailing away for 7 hours and not catching one. With that said, I try to go out at the most opportune times where those fish are going to be up. I rarely do early morning charters. Not, come on, I'm a little lazy, but really, there's every charter boat on the bay out first thing in the morning, and I can't compete with them. If I have guys live lining right beside me, another guy throwing big spoons and big plugs, and my guy's just throwing a fly, it's not going to work. So I really try to do, kind of go off hours. I'll sometimes go out at noon and fish till 7 o'clock. Those evening hours will be half the amount of people, maybe even a quarter of the amount of people, and those fish will probably come off a lot better.
Yeah. Well, I would say, man, I don't know that I would feel comfortable fly fishing in the spring. Maybe it's just me. It seems so hard. And maybe it's just based on my historic quote unquote luck. I found fall to be a lot easier. Maybe because the fish were more active, but I've always had a challenge. But to your point, I do fish Raritan and I do fish it for striped bass. And in the spring, the bigger, the better that you're throwing out there, and making a lot of noise with those aggressive paddle tails, and the flutter spoons are insane amount of wake that it's throwing off of there and vibration. It's kind of hard to duplicate that with a fly. I mean, I believe, unless there's one that I'm not aware of, and there probably is, to be honest with you. But what are you going to be throwing when everyone's throwing out those flutter spoons?
A bunker fly. It doesn't. So, all right. So if you're fishing, let's say, I'd say most of the fishing in Raritan anyway, we'll kind of go through the progression. Early they're going to be weighing back in Raritan. Fish are going to work their way. So we may be, fish anywhere from 5 to 10 feet of water, out to 25 feet of water within Raritan, and mostly bunkers. They're on the bunker schools. So we're going to set, a lot of times we're throwing 450 to 550 grain sinking lines to get the fly down. And that's just a game. You have to go from bunker school to bunker school and see what's lively, see what's up, if there's any fish on top. If they're on top, you go to an intermediate line and do it. But in the bay, really not so much. So really it's a game of just going, trying to fish in that. I think the most effective way to fish a sinking line, as deep as you're going to go, is maybe 20 feet. Maybe. I don't really think so. I think I'd rather have them at 10 to 15 feet. And when you're doing that, you're not really casting. Yeah, you're throwing it off the front of the boat, but I'd rather have you throw it up current and just kind of feed that line out, let the boat go by on the drift, and then some big strips back in. It's a way to do it. And, we hook up, and guys who only want to fly fish do it, and I love it. It's great. And when you do hook up, it's special for sure. But really, I think my very favorite time is, and I got to tell you, we have a lot of 50-pound bass. It's not because of me. It's because I have good anglers, and we know that we have the right conditions. We go, once you get into May and then really into June, you get out front on the ocean and you start following the fish. And my best friend is really the gas station attendant, because I need a full tank of gas. I am going to run on that ocean. And
right.
Every time you stop on a bunker school and you throw, I'm not giving anything away here, but everyone knows I got in trouble for since before. But you throw a big dock. You know what a docks plug is? It's about an 11-inch. It's a must. I will grab one in a second. I'll grab one.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're back into it. A docks plug this is probably. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
You guys got it?
Actually, move it a little bit over. There you go.
Got it?
Yeah, and I can right. Isolate you as well.
So this is a little bit smaller one, actually. So picture this thing right here. I don't use hooks. Actually, I use the 11-inch one, which is a little bit longer. So I'll be throwing this thing without hooks all day long. Yeah, so I will be throwing it. We do a lot of tees. We go up. We find the bunker school, and I'm right in the middle of the boat. I have a 28-foot boat without a T-top because I tease and switch. I cast immediately from the middle of the boat, and I I try to pull them up. I get those fish going on the docks plug, and they just blow it up. I rip it out of the way. The guys cast their flies, and that's probably and then strip as soon as, because those fish are going to hang out where the bait disappeared when I pull it out. And that's probably, 75% of my big fish come that way. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome.
That's got to be awesome. So I want to go into detail on all that stuff. But before we get in there, so you're not just fishing for striped bass though, right? I mean, you're fly fishing a bunch of different species throughout the year. So what does your year typically look like for your charters, or even not charters? If you just had a year off and anytime you went fishing, you got paid, like you brought guests, what would you be doing?
Yes, I dig the stripers. I love it, and I think probably, I don't know if it's what I'm best at. I really do. I love it. My next season is I'll go back and forth a lot. I go to the Upper Delaware River in the Catskills, and I drift boat fishing, and that's fly only. Absolutely no spinning rod. They're all wild trout. They're too, they're just, honestly, they're too special to catch on a spinning rod. It's very technical fishing, but I'll tell you what, it's a special place. And going down the river, I have a drift boat with an angler in front and back, and it's and again, you really have to. It's a great place I wouldn't say to learn, but it kind of takes you to that next level, because if you spend a lot of time fly fishing in saltwater, what are you doing? You're trying to get distance. You're trying to manage your line. You're trying to throw a straight line, correct? When you're on this drift boat, I'll say, there's a fish 45 feet away. I'm going to drop the anchor. I'm in position. I'll drop the anchor, hop up in the front of the boat, and make a dry cast with a dry fly and present that thing. You have to throw a curved line. Right. Reach up so the fly will have a good drift presentation right over top of it, and and we can work one single fish for 45 minutes. It's a really an awesome experience. And you feel like you're out west. I'll have one of my bird dogs on the boat with me. We'll have eagles up above. Yeah. It's really, really a special place.
Yeah, and that's the type of freshwater fishing that I would love to do. Not out there to just try to fill a bucket or anything like that. And sometimes, honestly, I feel, even though I'm throwing 95% of everything back, I kind of feel like I get in that kind of rut saltwater. And saltwater fly fishing, to me, you just don't get that challenge as often. When you can see that fish, that fish is there, and that you have to tempt it because it's a wild trout, which means translation, smart trout. Yeah. That's a whole different thing, and that's a whole different skill level too. You're using multiple different types of casts then as well, right?
Yeah, you are, for sure. Really, you can get by. If you're in the front of the drift boat, it's always going to be, you're going to throw one cast really, but the cast has to be special because I made some decals this year, some new logos with the trout boat with my dogs on it, and it says Blitzbound guide service, and underneath it says reach in big letters with exclamation points, because it's the most important. I probably say it 500 times every trip. Because when you're feeding the fish downstream, more or less, quartering and downstream, you can't throw a straight line. You have to throw it at the fish and then reach your line up so all your line lands upstream. Right. And the bug lands, and your line is behind your bug. So it just has a very natural presentation over your target, which is the rising fish.
So I can tell you, I've tried that. I'm not good at that.
You'll get good after the day of me yelling reach.
Well, yeah, and that's the motivation that sometimes you need. Yeah, that's something that I definitely would need to improve on for freshwater, which might be why I really like the saltwater. Naturally, I'm going to prefer saltwater just because that's kind of how I was brought up. But let's jump a little bit into that kind of stuff. Let's talk a little bit about more of the technical side. So let's say we have people in the chat that want to get into or want to give it a go with some saltwater fly fishing. What kind of tackle? Well, let's start with the rod. What kind of rod should they be looking for? What weight, or maybe you could explain really the basics of a fly rod and how it would be applicable for saltwater.
All right, so I think we're probably past that point. Everyone gets what a fly rod is, where you're throwing the weight of the line as opposed to the weight of the lure with a fly rod. Yep. And you anywhere a fly rod or saltwater fly rod they have saltwater 6 weights, but they're really 7 weights to 12 weights what we would utilize up here. So you have let's say you have an 8 weight rod. A lot of guys have an 8 or a 9 weight rod, right? And that seems to be a good way to start. And you can probably catch probably 90% of the fish we're going to catch up here with an 8 or a 9 weight rod, whether it's false albacore who run like hell, or 25 or 30 pound bass on an 8 or a 9 weight rod. I have every time I'm out on my boat, I have 6 10 weights. I have nothing else but 10 weights for bass trips anyway. And that's mostly what I do. The reason being is these things are so damn light these days, these fly rods. What do you need an 8 weight? What's an ounce less? 10 weight really, I like it for 2 reasons. First of all, it's going to help you fight a fish better because it's going to lock up in the butt section better. You're not going to worry about it breaking or anything like that. It's just a more effective fish fighting tool. Right. And also, that heavier line is also going to give you the opportunity to throw larger flies. And we're throwing predominance, even, the bunker flies, but the smaller flies, even the peanut bunker flies, or the sand eels. The sand eel flies, you want to get them down. There's going to have some weight there. So you're going to want to have your line to try to get those out. So I really don't think you can go wrong with anything with a 10-weight rod. If you have a 9-weight out there, if you have an 8-weight, good for you, man. It's going to be great. I have guys who fish an 8-weight on my boat all the time for albies, and then 9s and 10s. But when really for the Northeast, for these bigger bugs we're throwing, the 10s and even 11 weights rule. They really do.
I personally have an 11-weight. I need to replace it though. It's one that my grandfather made for me before he passed away, and it's incredibly expensive. And now it's incredibly old. And I'm afraid that, I'm going to end up snapping that thing. It's an 11-weight, and I've caught my fair share of, mahi and sharks and, larger fish on that. But what kind of brand would you recommend for somebody like me that, for me, it's to replace one that I don't want to use, but for somebody that's just getting into it, let's say they're looking at a 10-weight.
Well, I will tell you that I am sponsored by Scott Fly Rods.
Okay.
And all these fly rods are good these days, to be honest with you. The reason I like Scott Fly Rods is because when I was in 8th grade, and my first good fly rod I got was a Scott 8-foot 4-weight rod. 8-foot 4-weight rod. And it was, I'm like, Scott, this is such a cool name. They're out of Colorado. And I kind of I always use Scott rods, and they're, top of the line. They're made in America. They're only, they only make fly rods. And I was lucky enough when I started doing shows, I started kind of, doing little trout trips, doing the saltwater trips. I met the president of Scott at one of these shows. And he says, let's go fishing. So I fished with him one time. And then I just became friends with him. And then I got on their pro staff. So that, everyone's like, pro staff, it's so cool. Everyone talks about, who cares? There's so many pro staffs in all the fishing. This pro staff I'm proud of, because I'm like, I was back in 8th grade and I like the Scott Fly Rod. And here I text Jim Borchi all the time and say, hey man, what's going on? He'll send me a demo rod to try out. So he likes to say he puts soul into his rods. And I kind of believe he does. It's a small factory, and he'll send me demos, say, hey, try these out. Let's go fishing with these things. See what you think of them. There's fly fishing's expensive. There's no doubt about it. I'm certainly not saying you need to go out and buy their Sector or Centric, which are $900, $1,000, but there's, you kind of get what you pay for right off the bat, to tell you the truth. So you are looking at an investment right off the bat, $400 to $500. If you're going to go that route, there's other brands called Reddington or the lower Orvis models. And guys, once you buy those and you get, let's say you buy you buy yourself an Orvis 9-weight for $200 total beginner package, and you'll get proficient with it. Guarantee you're a fishy dude. You're going to get proficient. Then you're going to do a couple charters with me, and maybe you go out in my drift boat with me, and you're like, Jace, I like that Scott rod. I'm gonna have to get one of those. I'm gonna have to get 2 of those. It's just a natural progression, fellas. That's the way it is.
It's funny. I don't know, Jason, if you're looking at the chat, but Brian's making fun of me, saying that I'll have a heart attack at how expensive those are. I tend to go cheap on this stuff. Mainly, I always have to qualify it, mainly because I fish mostly out of a kayak. And I had the potential to lose a rod at any point. And I definitely don't want to lose a fly rod, because of the cost.
Top out of a kayak for sure too.
Yeah. Now I will say to Brian, I do have a rod holder that has a special lock for fly rods. So that as long as I have it locked in there, and of course, if I go over and I have it in my hand, I'm not letting go. But I am prepared for that. Now, I do know that it's expensive. Like I said, the reason I'm not using my one is because it's a custom, which is extremely expensive. Back when it was made, it was, probably could have sold it for about $2,000 at the time, because it is literally top of the line. That's what you get with a grandfather who wanted to make the nicest rod possible for you. But, I'm not in that category now. So I'd be looking at something less expensive. But to me, now I have heard Scott is good. And I did talk to a guy down in Stone Harbor who actually used that brand. And he was telling me really the big thing is after you pick that rod, you got to find the right reel. And what I have right now is a 20-some-year-old, maybe even older, scientific, what is it, a scientific something?
I know what it is. If it's a Cyangler rod. Yeah, I know exactly that. Let me put that into the screen, will you?
It's system 2.
Yeah, I know exactly what that is. That's what. So, all right. So, yeah, I'm going to backtrack just a hair because I just sound like an elitist. That's something I never want to be. You don't need a $400 rod. I'm going to say if you're fishing, you're going to graduate to it eventually. What
Yes.
you need is a rod that can cast. So there's so many rods out there these days that are, they're made overseas. They ship them over. They're pretty good for sure. There's no doubt about it. You need one. You don't need the fastest rod. Everyone says, "Oh, I need a fast rod." Well, why do you need a fast rod? And no one can really answer that question unless you're really a proficient caster casting in the wind. You need a rod that loads. The most important thing is you go back and forth. You want to be able to manage your line. You want to feel the thing load. You don't want to go too forward too fast or backwards too slowly, anything like that. So the rod is going to present everything. The reel, I got to tell you, you're due down there. You need a reel that's not going to rust out, but I'll tell you what, you can I've gotten by for years with click and pawl type drags, and then in saltwater with drags that don't put a lot of pressure on it, because you can have your hand, you palm it like that.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it's really in trout fishing, even on these, on my big river where you catch some bigger fish, 22, 23-inch fish on a 5-weight, you're not cranking it down. It's the startup inertia, and the startup inertia can be controlled with your hand. So a reel is something that's the last thing I'd want you to dump your money into. You get the best rod you can for sure. You talk to someone, and then before you buy that rod, a lot of these rod manufacturers will recommend line. And I'm a real strong believer. I go through so many fly lines, and it's really wonderful to be friends with these guys from Scott. To say, what type of line did you design this with? Well, what's best? Because again, there's some lines that are, say a 5-weight line. They package it as a 5-weight line. Well, it's made for a really fast 5-weight rod. So it's really not a 5-weight line. It's probably a 5.5 or even a 6-weight line package. Right. As a 5-weight. It's heavier grains. When I talk about this, now I'm just realizing, like, dude, just chill out. You're talking too much technical stuff. The fact of the matter is, it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult at all. When you go into a fly shop and you sit down and you talk to a gentleman, you come into my garage and we bullshit for 45 minutes and then go out in the backyard and cast a little bit, someone's going to get a good idea of what they need to do. And then, until you get proficient at it, you watch some videos and you keep practicing.
Yeah. I will say this. I do think, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, I do think it is important, though, when you're going out to buy fly rod and fly gear, go to a fly shop, go to a local fly shop if you can, because those are the guys that know. If you go into Dick's, they're not going to know what the heck they're doing. No. And that's from personal experience. When that's why I had the reel that I had with that rod, because there was no set. The guy said, "Well, you don't need anything. You're just gonna use your hand on it anyway." And I caught on that cheap. I think it was at the time as maybe a $80 reel, $100
reel. Yeah, but
that
cellular system too. I've sold them. I used to work in a fly shop on Long Island. I sold a ton of those reels for beginners. They're kind of bomb proof. They work.
Well, it still
everything works.
It's,
whichever way you want to take it. I mean, I admit, excuse my language, but I'm kind of like a shop dick. I've always loved gear. I can't. Yeah. That's just the way. It's just part of me. And if you look around, it's ridiculous in my garage. But I'm not. It's not like I'm judging. Oh, you don't have a Shimano Stella or something like that. We don't. It's just something. As a fishing guide, I think if I'm going to take people, they kind of spend a decent amount of money to go fishing with me. I can't guarantee them fish, but I can guarantee I'm going to put them in the best situation to catch fish. To catch those fish, they have to be on probably maybe not the nicest boat. I'll tell you what, it's going to be the cleanest boat, and best maintained boat. Right now, it's one of the nicer boats because it's brand new, and both the boats. And I always think, if people are paying me this money, I need to put it back in the business. I want to have the best equipment as I can for them to fish off of. There's no rusty hooks, no stuff like that. It's a pretty good business model, I think.
Yeah. So what about all right? So we go out, we go to the tackle shop, we get the rod. We get the reel. Now, this is the part to me that was always the most difficult part. Now you have to pick. You have one setup, right? Let's say we're tailoring this to beginners, to people that are just. I want to go out a few times a year. I want to learn how to do this. What really got me was, now what line do I get? Do I get intermediate? Do I get sinking? Do I get float, weight forward? Can you talk a little bit about the different line options that you have when you're starting out?
Yeah, but we're mostly, we have to play that game since we can go two routes here. We can go saltwater route, or we can go a dude who's a freshwater who wants to maybe do a little bass fishing and wants to do the trout fishing. So let's touch saltwater first. Saltwater, ask yourself where you're going to be fishing from. Is it going to be from the beach initially? Do you have a boat? You can probably get away. Honestly, I can't say this. I only fish one area in New Jersey, but for me, I can get 80% of my fishing in, 75% of my fishing in with an intermediate line. That's a line that's typically, it's going to be easier to cast, by the way, because it's a thinner diameter than a floating line. And that's going to usually sink maybe 1 inch, 1.5 inches overall. It's intermediate. It just goes below the surface. That's in a weight forward line. To start with, there's no other. If for saltwater, I mean, you guys can talk about shooting heads and stuff like this. You need a weight forward line. You know, there's different heads, but you just buy a basic. You can go into a fly shop, get the best fly line you can, because some of the cheaper fly lines will fall apart. But you go to a scientific angler fly lines. Oh, you know, the beginner MDX taper or you know, the striper taper. It's going to be a good line for you. It's all going to be weight forward, and I'd definitely say an intermediate taper.
Okay, that kind of validates what I did. How long does the fly line last typically? How many seasons?
Depends on how much you fish. Every year we get new ones for sure. Yeah. For the most part, and that's not because I catch so many fish. It's not. It's because my dudes walk around on the boat and they step on the line, and if they have dirt on their shoes. And the funny thing is, and you guys, I don't know if you know this or not, on the bow of your boat, if someone's casting, and I said this several times already, the most important thing is fly fishing is control. One of them is controlling your line. It's line control, because you hook up a fish, you have all this line on the deck. Where's it going to go? You have to clear it so it comes out of the guys, and you can fight the fish. But when you have a bunch of line on your deck and you say, I want to move because I keep stepping in it, the first time you just push it out of the way with your foot, it's done. It's done. You have to try to put it behind the boat and drive around so it unspins itself, because that makes it coil immediately. It's just grinding it against the surface. That's probably the worst thing you can do to the fly line. If you have a fly line, you go out fishing, you come home, you wash your reel, warm water, put it away. You have years and years, 10 years you can use a fly line.
Yeah. Okay. Mine's really old now.
I bought my setup last year, but it's seen a little bit of use.
It's a good point, though. I mean, once you get that twist, I mean, that's going to pick it up quickly too. It's not like stepping on braid. I mean, it's going to affect that.
As soon as you put your foot on and you move it, it's going to twist it. It's a hard twist.
Yeah, because it's got a little bit of grip on it too when it's on the deck of that boat. I know that from personal experience. And so the line management though. How are you recommending people do that when they're on a boat as opposed to when they're surf casting? One of the things that I ran into a lot when I was first starting out was I found literally every single cleat ever created on a boat, and some I didn't know were there.
Yeah, it still happens. I mean, it's just you have to get used to it. I'll have the best fly caster around on the front of the boat, whether it's a drift boat or the big boat, and you're still going to get caught. You just have to be cognizant. Where maybe on my cooler up front, I have two hatches. I'll throw a wet towel over it, so it just slides over that. But it happens. I think the biggest thing where, on a open saltwater boat like mine, and my bow is like a dance floor, where people get caught mostly is, let's say you hook up and you have a hard, strip strike, right? And the fish takes off, so you lift your line up and it starts to clear the line. It wraps around your fighting butt. It just seems to be all the time. So you always have to look down at your feet, clear your feet, and then keep an eye on and just watch that line go out of your hand. And it's the best fisherman out there does that fly line dance, and it's fun to watch. And once you have that line, I'm yelling, clear it, watch it, and I'll try to help. And then once the fish is off, on the reel, it's a blast.
Yeah, it's always a challenge getting it on the reel for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I'll just strip it all the way in. Because it's like, it gets around the butt, and then it gets around the reel seat, and now you're totally hung up on there. And then trying to pick with tension on that, when it's wrapped tight around the butt and curled around that reel seat, it's impossible. You can't do it.
Rich, we're not stripping in a 40, I'll tell you that. So we got
That is true. See, I've never caught a 40-inch bass. I've caught some decent sized sharks. And no, I was not, but those were easy. Those were easy to clear the line because I could see them. I was sight casting them and they were fairly close. Right. It's not like I was going out to a bunker pod that was, I'm trying not to spook. It's tough to spook a shark. Let's just put it that way, especially when it's cruising on the surface. So we have the intermediate line, we have weight forward. We've got our first rod set up. what about the backing? How should we think about that?
Important stuff for sure, because the fly line's only 110 feet long, maybe 120 feet long. And I kind of put it on, forget about it. I use gel spun backing, 30-pound test on everything, whether it's on my little trout reels or on my bigger saltwater reels. It's called gel spun. It's a little expensive, just like everything in salt and fishing, but it lasts. I have it, I'll wash it off after a few trips or so forth, just spray the reel, and it's gel spun. Nothing's going to happen to it.
Right. Okay.
So,
you spend a lot of time in the backing.
You know what? In saltwater, you spend a lot of time in the backing for sure.
Yeah.
I don't spend a lot of time on it, but we spend a lot of time in the backing. How many times, and that's almost what you say if you have a good fish. Oh, I'm in the backing. So this is a good fish. He's really running on you.
Right.
And whether it's a striper or, false albacore, we live in the backing out there because I do a lot of striper. We haven't even covered that. The Montauk season, I spend my fall in Montauk, and that's the whole false albacore thing. That's ridiculous.
I should put up, let me get the pictures ready to share so that people can see those. Man, there's some incredible pictures. Let me add these in so that people can see them. We'll just kind of go through. So there's the boat, the saltwater boat. These are the fish that we're talking about. Now, not all these are going to be on the fly, right? Some of these are probably plugged.
I can probably tell you. I think both of those are plugged. And one's a spring, one's the one on the left. The one on the left is a fall. The one on the right is a spring.
Man, there's some beautiful fish.
Yeah, they are. That's Chris. That's a definite fly fish on the left, and a fly fish on the albacore that's a Montauk fish, which is really a pretty amazing thing. That the whole, everyone says, "Oh, Montauk, yeah, I've heard of it." It's all they say it is. It really is. You have the blitzing bass all day, not big bass, but good bass. When they're all up on top, you can catch. It's a pretty amazing thing. And these false albacore are just ridiculous.
Well, I'll tell you that bass there looks like a big bass to me.
It is. I'd say it's around 40.
Yeah,
because he couldn't hold it. Yeah, he couldn't hold it like that. It's not a 50, but it's approaching 40, maybe a hair bigger. And Chris is a big dude. He's about 6'2".
Yeah, and on the fly, and that albacore, man, that has got to be insane hooking into one of those for the first time, because those things, the speed. Yeah, you get the power in the striped bass, but you don't get nearly the speed that you get on those.
That's a great point. You're right. You have the power. I always say, when I go out to Montauk, first day I put the boat in and I say, I'll go catch one of these things myself. After I catch one, I'm like, shit, I'm tired. Yeah. They just go. Cause you hook one and you hold the reel up, the rod up, and they're off 100 yards.
Yeah.
It's really quite an experience. And they have more than one run in them as well.
Gotta love it.
I always say they're kind of the perfect fly rod fish, because you can actually have shots at them. You have a guy in the boat, and they'll pick their direction. If they're going to be, typically they're going to be feeding into the current. So you see them going left to right. All right, there we go. Right there, make your cast. Not going to be a terribly long cast, but you have to actually present the fly, have it turn over in front of them, and then start moving that bug. And then once they hit it, it's a blast. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it's like a train hitting. I have never been fortunate enough to hook one. Unfortunately, I have tried. I've also tried tuna. Excuse me, and I've not hooked a tuna either. The closest I got, I guess I could say, is a mahi, which was that was a lot of fun. Those things,
a lot of fun.
Those get airborne.
Airborne, and they quit. That first run is really jerky and fun, but they're not. The albacore just keeps going and going. But I love I'll take any of them, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Well, mahi are actually. I wonder what your thought is on this. I would say if you're offshore and you really want to get into offshore saltwater fly fishing, mahi is a really good place to start, because especially if you're pot hopping or you're, going buoy to buoy, or you see something floating, because it's pretty easy to tell where they are, right? They're going to, and then if they're feeding, it's even easier, because you could just see all the fish flying out of the water ahead of them as they're going 20 miles an hour after these schools.
Yeah, you're right on. It's not easy to tell where they are, but where they should be. So right. We're 20 miles offshore. Last year I got the boat. We said, let's start running this thing around offshore. We stopped on a 2x4 that was only, a foot long. Let's take a cast at 34-inch fish.
Yeah.
It's really it's incredible how they congregate. And that's because the bait fish are there as well. But yeah, they'll if they're there, they'll typically eat.
And it's crazy. They'll, like you said, you can stack multiple fish under a 1 foot piece of wood.
Yeah, it's neat stuff. There's one.
Yeah, look at that.
That was honest to God, that was the fish from last year where we stopped. That was the biggest one we caught that day. He just said, you know what? Let me just throw a little epoxy jig at the piece of wood. And the next thing you know, it ate.
Oh, it's cool, amazing. Stuff. And that picture on the right, I had to use that for the thumbnail for this video because I love that with the fly just taking up its entire mouth there.
Yeah, it's neat. Half the fun. I take so many damn pictures. It's fun, and I'm really not like I've been doing a few talks lately, and I usually don't. And thanks for sharing these, but I usually don't say, "Okay, guys, here's the big fish we catch." I hate that stuff. I hate talking at people. I love talking with people and just talking about my season because I think my seasons are really cool and they're really fun, and I love to share, talk about it, and I like to hear what other people have to say because there's a lot of time I'm at a DU meeting. And the people are like, "Oh yeah, I fish this stretch of the Delaware, and this is what I do here." I'm all ears. I want to learn too.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can have some of the best fishermen in the world, and let's just throw John Skinner out there for flounder, right? He can catch flounder, he can catch striped bass, but if you think he can't learn from a guy who's been fishing his entire life in South Carolina, you're absolutely crazy because he's catching flounder in an entirely different way than Skinner is, and they both work probably just as well. I think there's nobody that's going to know everything. There's nobody. And as soon as they say they do, that's when you can probably stop listening because nobody knows everything about, even one species. There's so many ways to catch them, so many techniques. And, we had Mike from Northeast Jig on, and he was talking about the thing with the colors. We have nuclear chicken up here, which is really popular, and they don't use it down south. And then when they started using it, they're like, wow, this works. They talk about using jigs for tog and sheep's head down south. That's new. The Outer Banks just got that 2 years ago. The shops just started stocking those, but up here it's kind of, that's what you do. You don't use rigs all the time. You use a jig in the shallow water, and it was all new to them down there.
You want to hear a cool thing about color?
Yeah.
This was pretty cool, I thought. And so some guy was telling me, and I was doing a presentation. It was not this year, it was last year. And we're talking about how selective the trout are. I'm like, oh man, my guy would make a really good cast. It was perfect. It was perfect presentation. And those fish are so smart. They'd come up, they'd put their nose on it, and then they'd turn around, they'd turn away. And there's been times where someone would throw not necessarily a popper, but something presentation wise, slower presentation where a bass would come look at it and turn away. And so we were talking, he says, I really strongly believe that a fish is going to go up and look at something, go to eat it, and get close enough and look at the thing. Because you know why? Because it had the right profile. But when they get that close, it's the wrong color. So you switch colors up. And it certainly works in trout fishing. And I think, we'll start giving it a try on the saltwater side too. But I think it's really important, especially when you get, I don't think, when you get refusals, I think your profile is probably correct, but your color is wrong.
Yeah, it's enough interest to get them close, and then they're rethinking it at the last minute. So either you're not working it well, or I think you're right. I think color has a lot to do with it.
Too. Yeah, but a great point though with saltwater, because you are working a lure, you're actually providing the action. So that could be exactly the case as well. Trout fishing, it's not definitely the color, but you know what? It's a dead drift. We're not doing a damn thing.
Right.
And they're putting their nose on it, and they decided against it.
So now for bass in the saltwater, are you using natural colors, or are you going more the neons, the fluorescents, stuff like that?
I light it up a lot. I like the pale yellows. I like some purple. I think again, Rich, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. If you're working it correctly and if you have the right profile, if you look at my big fly box, a lot of there's one that, I don't know if you guys can see. You have some muted colors there, but you have some lavender in there. You want something to light up a little bit,
right?
Just, something. And these are the size of them. But a big fan of this olive and yellow. I'm trying to match the hatch. And if you look at a bunker, it has some yellow hues. It has that olive, has that kind of dirty color. So there's not a lot really. Yes, Lefty says if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use, and they work for sure. But I don't throw as much chartreuse. A little yellow there, but I don't know why pink does it, man. Pink and white with some yellow mixed in. The best lure I've ever seen for albacore and some stripers is a pink sluggo. Who knows why? I mean, albacore crush the pink sluggo when they're really eating anchovies that big. Can't say no. Maybe it has something to do with squid.
Right. So let's talk about the flies a little bit since you shared those. Did you tie those?
Some. And some, I have some really good dudes who tie a great bug. I'm like, hey, help a guy out.
I have a question. If you do your own flies,
I do. I try to keep up. I have a lot of seasons, whether it's Jersey, whether it's trout flies, or whether it's Montauk. So a lot to keep up, and we do go through a decent amount of flies really later in the season. These big bugs will last a long time, and there's one out of the box like that. I mean, this will take a while to tie. You got it right there?
Yeah, there's a lot on there.
Yeah, there's a lot on there, but it's also translucent. You can see through it. There's not a ton of material used to tie it. You just have to high tie it top and bottom. So you have that, right. You have the profile. And this thing has caught fish before. I cleaned it up and I put it in a bag. So these don't, the stripers really don't tear them apart. And I'll be honest with you, when you're, fall, we're catching a ton. I think Richie had mentioned it's easier in the fall in Jersey.
I think it is.
It is. They're blitzing. They're coming down the coast. They're eating like crazy before they go, spawn, or before they go south. In the spring, we will have action up on top for sure. We will have some blitzes, but I hate to say we're not catching 25 fish. We're working for 3 or 4 fish, but the 3 or 4 fish will probably 2 of those will be 2 of the bigger ones you ever catch.
Yeah. Wow. And what patterns are you typically? Let's stick with the striped bass to start. What patterns are you typically going to want to throw? And does it change throughout the year?
Changes a lot, just because the bait. But bunkers become so popular here, so very popular. So it's a bunker fly. A high tide, Popovic's beast fly,
yep.
Something like that. Really a garbage can fly they call, which is really a deceiver tied with extra heavy. And then again, I talk about high tide. The reason I say is if you tie on a typical fly, people would go and they'd tie everything. They'd tie a tail in, and then they'd tie their feathers or their hair in the front.
Right.
And then, but the problem with that is when it gets wet, it would all come together and would look like it would look like a silver side or something like that, which is good. There's those instances, but when you tie a fly like this, you're tying material in the back all the way up to the top. So this one, even when it gets wet, it's going to keep its heavier, its wider profile, and that's because we're what are we talking about? We're just talking about bunker, and this is a peanut bunker fly, which works really good. It has been used. It'll be used again. But that's not, so you don't have to have 1,000 flies. You can have 6 good bunker flies, 6 good, maybe a few more peanut bunker flies, because they really chew those up. But really our other baits this time throughout the year, sand eels are very, very important.
Right.
I mean, you guys know what sand eels are, long, and they can be anywhere from 3 inches up to 6, 8 inches, actually, which you go a little offshore. And the fish, that's really a fall thing. It's been a fall thing. Didn't show up too well last year, but we got a few. The bunker really stayed around. And then really my only other really heavy forage bait fish would be the anchovies, and that's mostly island Montauk, the small 2-inch type bugs.
So something like this, you're talking like a sand eel.
Yeah, it could be. Just like that. They'll eat that.
Yeah.
I have the same. So I'll give you if we go. We're just doing a comparison. I mean, we're catching out, and actually we'll catch albacore, and we will catch, and that's not big, guys.
That's beautiful,
and girls.
Yeah.
And that's it's just easy. Someone, I think one of you guys mentioned the tubing, and this is a guide fly. This is since I've been tying this fly for 20 years. Paul Dixon taught me it one day on the dock when I was kind of a newbie. It's you tie your material in, you put this piece of tubing over, tie it off, put some epoxy on, and you're done. That is a guide fly. It's a 2-minute fly. You don't.
It becomes like surf candy.
Yeah, it does, and it's a variation of surf candy.
Yep.
Popovich was, an absolute genius, for sure. So, I mean, if you're talking sand eels, these are a little bit small, but something like this, the guys tie them up, and I didn't tie these actually. They can get a little bit more. With the silver on the bottom.
Yeah,
that's actually an anchovy, but it's really the same size as the sand eel. Or same profile anyway. You know what, people, I think that once you start tying flies, you kind of appreciate catching the fish a little bit more on the fly you tied.
Absolutely. I mean, there are very few things that are more rewarding. I have made my own rods. I've made my own flies. I've made my own lures. But the lures and the flies, I think, are the coolest. When you did that. Now, the lures I made were not very good, which is why I use Ed's now. I couldn't get into it. I loved tying flies. But for me, I wasn't able to go fishing enough to make it worth it, because I'd make a whole bunch of flies and they'd last like 3 or 4 years. And then I get rid of them just because I wanted to tie new ones.
Give them to your buddies. There's nothing wrong with that, though. You can't fish, you stay home and tie for a little while.
Yeah, back then I didn't have any buddies that did fly fishing. I didn't know anybody that did saltwater fly fishing or freshwater fly fishing. Everyone was just, throwing, well, at that time it was the Kmart combo rods for bass and trout and everything. Okay, so those are some of the flies. Now, one thing I didn't notice, are you ever using clousers to get down deeper? Or
for sure.
You are? Okay.
For sure. Yeah. And that's, again, we're using a 10-weight rod, but if you're really going to use a clouser with some big barbell, dumbbell eyes, it's no doubt going to get down, but it's not going to get down. If you're using an intermediate line, it would take your intermediate line, it'd have to drag the line down. So if you want to use a sinking line with the clouser lines, that's a great idea. With a clouser fly, it's a great idea. I mean, it's, you could go a whole year. You could go the rest of our lives, fellas, just fishing a lefties deceiver and a clouser.
Yes.
And catch 90% of our fish in saltwater.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Two proven patterns to use there, and then you can just do the colors as you choose. Now, what size hooks are you using? Because take a look at the anchovy and the sand eel ones that you held up, the little 2.5 to 3 inch ones. Those look like
this
small
would be
hooks.
A 2. Yeah, I'd go with a 2, anywhere 2, 1/0 for sand eel, or a sand eel. If you're going a bigger one, a 6-inch, maybe a 2/0 hook. You want some heavier wire because you're catching the bigger fish.
Right.
And then once you get to your bigger bunker flies, 3/0, 4/0, 5/0. Some big stuff. A lot of them have 2 hooks, a stinger hook and back as well.
Now so what size would you say would be realistic to catch on those smaller 1/0 hooks?
Well, on a 1/0 hook, you'll catch a 30-pound bass if you have a 1/0 hook with a sand eel pattern. Absolutely, a 1/0. I mean, we catch a lot of decent sized bass, teen size bass on the size 1, not even 1/0, but the size 1 on the Montauk, especially in the blitzes, because they're blitzing on anchovies. Yeah. So you have to have a smaller hook if you're going to have a smaller profile fly.
Yeah, I bring it up. That was one of the questions when you were talking about those specifically. Could those catch big fish? I think people, and again, Elle is in the chat. She will point this out. They make fun of her for using small hooks all the time, but she catches big fish on small hooks. And I think this is a really good example.
They penetrate really well.
They do. And they don't.
Yeah, that light wire.
People think they come out because they're smaller, but they really don't.
No, they don't. I mean, sometimes the stripers, the mouth is extremely hard and it has that protruding lip.
Yes.
Sometimes with a smaller fly, maybe it's a little bit harder to get it into it, or maybe goes in an awkward angle, because if you have a bigger hook, you get it in one side and it just plays itself all the way, onto the other side of the lip. But we catch plenty with a size 1. Hell, with a size regular 1.
Yeah. All right. How about, here's another question from Bill. How long of a tippet do you use when fishing for stripers, and what weight?
Awesome question. So everyone's like, I get guys on my boat, and let's stick with the bunker theme, shall we?
Sure.
I mean, because I do it so much, and then we even talk about the same thing for sand eels. They say, "Oh, Captain, look at this leader I got. It's 7.5 foot, 12-pound test." We don't need that. Why do you need that's? So if you have a 7.5 or an 8 foot leader, again, what I talk about line control and moving the bug once it's out in the water. If you have an 8 foot leader, that means if you don't turn it over perfectly, meaning the fly going out like that on the cast, you're going to have to take 2 or 3 strips before that fly even moves, because your leader is all going to be I haven't seen many striped bass or any striped bass or albacore that are really, really leader shy. If they are, I will lengthen my tippet. But what I'm going to go with a piece of 30, maybe a foot and a half piece of 30-pound fluorocarbon off my fly line, and then another 2, maybe 3 feet of anywhere from, I may go straight 30 for these big stripers we're catching. Sometimes for the albacore, I'll go a piece of 20 and then a piece of 12 typically. And again, I don't know, fellas, I'm probably never longer than 4 feet. Never longer than 4 feet. I really do keep it simple.
Wow. I just learned something.
No taper leaders.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm glad Bill asked that question because I was way too long. I'm talking 6 to 8 feet every time.
Oh, 8 feet would kill. Like, so one guy had an 8-foot leader on a fishing line. It's tougher to cast for sure. I mean, hey, by the way, when I'm trout fishing, I have 14-foot leaders. That's a whole different ball game. But for stripers, guys, like with the sinking line, guy had 7.5, 8-foot leader on there. I'm like, dude, your line is going to be down here, and your fly line should be taking that feathers, the fly down. Well, it's 8 foot above it in the column. It's going down slowly. It's dragging. So, use a 4-foot, a 3-foot section with the sinking line.
Huh. So
No doubt.
that explains a lot because I was using intermediate line and, it wasn't.
Yeah. I'm looking up at flies on my ceiling, or rods on my ceiling are already strung up. And I don't see anything longer than half the rod length, which in most of my sets are 9 feet long. So 4.5 is probably as long, and I will taper it. It does help a little bit. If I'm going straight 30, 30's a thicker and it's a stiffer line, I'll go straight 30. That's fine. But when I go albacore, I will go a piece of 30 and then I'll taper it down. I'll blood knot a piece of 20 and then maybe a piece of 12.
Okay, I was going to ask what knot are you using?
Tapers over.
So it's a blood knot.
I still like the blood knot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm no good at that. I don't know why. Probably because maybe it's because I haven't tied one in a decade.
Yeah. What knot? If you're going to put 20 to 15, what knot would you use?
I don't even know what I would use right now, to be honest with you. I don't even remember what I used to do. It's been so long since I've been fly fishing with where I've had to tie it together. I don't know. I don't remember.
That's a great thing about we have to go, but the good. I said I'm glad I didn't grow up in this day and age with all the information. I liked earning it, kind of. However, the other day I got into kind of the tuna offshore last couple of years. Not that I'm good at it or anything, but I'm putting the effort in. I'm like, oh, what is it? I think it's the FG knot. How the hell everyone talks about the braid to the leader? It's the toughest knot ever. When you watch,
I love that.
You watch two YouTube videos, and you're like, wow, I'm freaking good at this. I can do it on the boat even. It's the learning curve it's helpful.
Yeah, I learned to do that in the dark in my kayak while I'm pedaling to another spot. It looks complex, but it's really not. You can do it all by feel. You don't need to look at anything. As soon as you get the first 2 wraps, you're done. It's just the same thing over and over 10 to 13 times, depending on how long you want the knot to be.
Too.
Yeah, well, I let the spool of the mono leader hang, and I keep the, in my teeth and the rod. I just pull back with my head so there's the tension on the braid, and then I let the spool hang, the one loop over each side, and now it's hanging on its own, and it's perfect tension. Perfect tension. Now, I do tend to, at night, I don't cut the tag sometimes.
Oh, that drive me nuts.
I end up having to retie the whole damn thing, but
even for the big fish, inshore, I'm using the double uni knot. It's so easy. You can do it in your sleep. It's just, for 30-pound braid to 40-pound or 50-pound leader, it's as easy as you can go.
Yeah, I guess I will stick with the FG for now. I honestly, it's confession time. I don't even know how to do a uni to uni. I've never done one in my life.
I guarantee if you go to YouTube after this, it'll take you 27 seconds. You'll be like, oh, that's pretty easy. I'm done.
Yeah, well, that's what...
it's that easy, yeah.
Yeah, one of our other co-hosts, John, always tells me, just do the uni to uni, and he makes fun of me.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm happy with the FG. I can still do it in under a minute. But...
That's pretty solid. That's pretty solid right there.
I mean,
I'm still over here tying in Alberto, so...
Alberto. Guys, you ever have him on? Alberto?
Crazy Alberto?
Crazy Alberto, who was named after?
I would like to have him on, but I have not gotten in touch with him yet.
He's the best. So he used to work at the shop. We used to fish all the time together on Long Island. And the dude's, he's magic, man. He works hard. He's not just such a good angler. He works hard. He's always out in the middle of the night. And this was back in kind of our day on the island. And I text him sometimes. I'm like, dude, I was watching a pro bass tournament, and the guy's like, oh, just the Alberto knot. And I text out, I'm like, are you serious? That people are calling that's your knot now. Everyone knows who Crazy Alberto is.
Yeah.
How does this shit happen? But he deserved it. He's that good. To have his own knot, and we're talking about it.
That's one that I tied in the past, but I don't use that anymore. I don't use very many different types of knots, to be honest with you. I'm not that guy. But I will tell you, one thing that I do get requested on this channel is, can you do some knot videos and show us how you're tying it? I'm like, nope. There are so many out there right now that are so good.
Really good ones. Yep.
There's no reason for me to be fumbling my fingers up close so you can look at my fingernails. You can just look up 100 different FG knots, and there's probably going to be 99 different slants on it, and you're going to find one in the first 5 videos that's going to work perfectly for you. So I just recommend people do that. But so would you say the correct answer that I should have given you was that I should tie an FG knot on that leader, or the 30 to the 12?
You can tie whatever you're comfortable with, but I do. 30 to 12 is a little bit, you're gonna have too much of a hinge there. I'd go 30 to 20 to 12 probably. Gotcha. Or 30 to 20 to 15. And I like kind of light diameters, and I will blood knot it because it's just easy with the heavier saltwater lines.
Gotcha.
For sure.
All right. Well, we've gone through a lot of the gear stuff, and I want to make sure that we don't go through this whole thing without talking about a couple of other things. So your typical day on the water, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, it's not just, unless the guys force you to, or the clients force you to, you're open to different types of fishing, spinning gear, trolling, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. No trolling.
What's That's right. I should never say trolling to a fly fisherman.
Let's not go crazy here. Well, it's fine. I don't mind dudes who troll. It's all well and good, but dudes are paying me to go out and to maybe even learn something.
Yeah.
So let's do. Most of my clients really love to fly fish. I'll be honest with you, a lot of them aren't real great at it. And I think that's why I'm not judging. And it's not like I'm so great at it, but I've been doing it for a long time. And I think I can help them. And it's kind of real life situations where they're learning to take a little bit of a rocking boat. They have to, hey, just remember this thing. When you just let that line straighten out when on your back cast, that's going to help them. They'll remember it. So it's always a learning experience up there. So if dudes want to fly fish away. There are going to be times where it is rocking and the fish really aren't up, and we know that you can get them. We're drifting over, 4-knot, 3-knot drift over a ridge where if we drop, a bigger, I don't use bait, but if we drop a bigger bait, if we throw a plug,
right.
Give it a try, man. Try this Shimano or St. Croix rod with a Von Stahl reel with it's light, but it's so strong. Let's catch a fish on it, see what it's all about. People are blown away. They have a blast.
Yeah.
Absolute blast. So I don't like people saying, oh, you're using a spinning rod. That's cheating. It doesn't count. Count towards what?
Right.
Towards my tip. That's bullshit. But it's not a game. It's not a game. You're there for an enjoyment. It's great to catch fish. It's not. And if you have one of you guys, I'm sure you guys are good with a spinning rod. If you have a total novice with a spinning rod, the dude who's better with the spinning rod is going to catch more fish. So there's skill involved. There's skill involved in all of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It is true. Especially if you start fishing docks, you start fishing, heavy structure. If you're not able to put that cast with the spinning rod in the right spot, especially around a dock, you're just going to end up clanking off of it and spooking everything that's sitting
there. That's funny. You mentioned it was COVID who got me back into, so I was kind of shut down for a little while with COVID. I couldn't go upstate. I really couldn't take clients out on the ocean because the rule, and this was 2 years ago. So what am I doing? It's April. And I got a John boat and I started watching, we all did farm ponds for large bass when we were a kid. So there's a nice lake really 2 minutes from my house. Put my John boat in my truck, got a couple of trolling motors, and I'm doing this bass fish. I go out by myself. It is a blast. And let me tell you something. I go all in with everything. I mean, I got bags of soft plastics and bait, and I'm not fly rods either, fellas. But I watch pro bass fishing on TV. My wife walks in. She's like, "You're seriously watching this again?" I'm like, these guys, they're the best fishermen I've ever seen in my life. I'm a fly guy where I use big conventional stuff on saltwater. These guys teach you things. They are there's a reason they're fishing for $100,000 every weekend. And the same 3 guys are in the top 5 every single weekend. It's something special.
It is.
The way they work hard, the way they use electronics, the way they present, the way they read the water, read the weather. It's pretty neat stuff. I mean, I don't want to wrap my boat or anything, but I love that stuff. You learn a lot from it. I love going down there and pretending I'm a bass master, to tell you the truth.
Oh yeah, I watch that stuff all the time. I call that my after my wife goes to bed shows. You know, I have the Sportsman Channel is going on. I'm watching bow hunting. I'm watching, you know, anything I can find saltwater fishing. You know, I miss the days where every Saturday morning was like Walker K Chronicles,
the best, man.
Saltwater Sportsman. I used to absolutely love that. And I used to, again, record those on VHS tapes and just continually watch them over. In my mind, to this day, I still think I am going to live at Walker K and I am going to fish there every day because that's where I live. I'm damn near 50 and I still think that's going to happen just because I watched. Well,
I know the guy who owns Walker K.
Oh, really?
The guy, yeah, he's out in Montauk. He's John Applin is his name, and his family owned his father. I think his great grandfather invented the aerosol can, and they own Walker's K. And he's a big fly guy, huge fly guy. He has all us fishing guides over his house every year. And he's just an interesting guy. He owns that island. He's the one who produced all of it, or was the money behind it. He owned, I think it was the Sea Lion, the boat they fished out of a lot of time. Yeah, really neat stuff.
Man,
I mean, ridiculous.
Rich, I think we need to book a Fat Dad trip.
I was going to say.
Oh my goodness!
I was going to say we might have to go on a field trip and bring you with us, Jason.
No, he's a whole nother. That's a whole nother world, fellas.
Oh, it is. It is definitely. And we're seeing in the chat the Spanish fly. Yes.
Yeah, I love the Spanish fly. Jose was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He fished. He came to fish Montauk a few times, which was pretty neat. We all hung out with him. He's just a down to earth, cool dude.
Yeah.
Picked up a couple of chicks in the bar. Of course, he was a player. He was freaking awesome. Awesome guy. Awesome guy.
Oh man. Oh, it's funny. All right. So I'm getting off track now. I'm like just reminiscing about the great shows that we used to have back in the day. But I do have a couple of other questions. Actually, I wanted to make sure, you know, we're into this for a little while, but I wanted to make sure that we talk a little bit about what you're doing in freshwater as well, because that's a really big part of what you do throughout the year, you know, fly fishing and especially because it's wild trout that you're going after, right?
Yeah, we covered it. I mean, it's hard to explain. I think that it's I hate to say I really wouldn't want to take a never ever out on that river because I think they get very, very frustrated. A guy who, and I have taken, you know, a couple of my buds one guy came up from Florida and he's a competent fisherman for sure. He's like, yeah, I'm working on my cast. I'm working on my fly cast. So he's like, I want to go out in the river with you. It's not a place he wasn't proficient really yet. He didn't have the feel of a fly rod yet, and he's kind of a never ever. He's never ever caught a fish on a fly, even though he's a really fishy kind of guy. He really couldn't get it done. It just takes a lot of, you know. I'd love for someone to say, hey, I've really been practicing. I can feel a fly. I can present pretty well. I'd love to go, you know, a charter you. I'm like, that's phenomenal. I'll meet you at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're going to cast for a little bit on the lawn, just to go over a few things. It's not like I'm going to be, I just want you, you know, position you best for success. And, you know, I had a couple of guys last year where they go down and they were proficient. They got proficient as the day went by. We didn't crush the fish. There wasn't a ton of fish up. We have to wait for the bugs. You're always matching the hatch for the bugs. And what the guy said to me, he looked around one day and he was presenting to a fish. He just missed one. He says, you know what? I can't wait for next year. This place is so special. Because again, you 3 dudes and a bird dog going down the river all day, you know, a 10-mile float in 9 hours. It's pretty special. You forget about everything else, and you really you kind of dialed into the whole, you know, camaraderie thing and the fishing.
That's my type of freshwater fishing.
Yeah, it pumps me up. I really do like it.
I don't know that I even want to fish. I just want to float.
Yeah, floating's fun.
Well, until the guy next to you catches something and you don't have anything yet.
That's true.
Yeah, you get into it. You get pretty jazzed up.
It's a whole different kind.
To do it. Yeah.
So okay, so you've done. You're getting more into the offshore, the albacore, and we saw the mahi. Striped bass is, I think, probably one of your bigger targets throughout the year.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever gone? And I'm asking this. I have no idea what the answer is. So if the answer is no, then we'll just move on to another question. But what's your thought on fly fishing for species that are not typically considered targets for fly fishing, like flounder or sheep's head, or tog, or any of those?
All kind of hard. And I don't do it because I hate to say it, and I'm not disrespectful. they're all awesome fish. They're awesome eating fish too. But the guys don't want to pay the rate to go do that with a fly rod, because it's it's a lot of it would be a lot of work. You're going to be sinking line for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how we've caught a few tog, actually, a few blackfish, got lucky, dredging sometimes. Oh my God, we got a blackfish, but it doesn't happen real often. It's just, they're ground fish, and it's hard to feed a ground fish with a fly.
Yeah. I was thinking, I always say it would be great to catch one on the fly, but it's really tough to get a fly down deep like that, especially around structure. Because the fly is just going to naturally pass right by it unless you have no current, which that's going to be pretty tough.
You're not catching fish if you don't have any current.
Yeah. And I'm talking specifically inshore too. So you're not going to fly fish a bridge right up against the piling for a sheep's head. It's going to be really tough. But I've been thinking about pulling this fly rod out and going out on the flats for flounder, with 1 foot of water with a popper. I have caught them on a popper.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Way cool.
I just wondered if you'd ever. Well, you don't actually you don't have a flats boat though.
I did. I used to, and I used to do flats fishing all the time. But we didn't spend any time on flounder. It would be striped bass,
right?
That goes. So watching them. Okay, we got them at 11 o'clock, 70 feet. They're coming. Left to right. That's the kind of thing we'd do.
I guess it would be an odd charter if somebody says, "Hey, I want to go fly fishing on the flats with you for flounder."
Yeah, it would be a little bit odd.
I might be the only one that might do that.
I really don't do any fluke or flounder trips. I think there's guys who are real good at it, and there's a lot. You can to be again just like you have to be good at fluke or flounder. Fluke fishing here. You guys have their spots, they have their numbers, they run hard, and then they have little tricks in their back pocket. I don't spend the time doing it. I'm mostly really not a bait guy. I'm kind of run and gun type of guy, and whether it's fly or throwing plugs or breaking down the water with artificials, that's what I'd rather be doing.
No, definitely. Ed, did you have something you were going to say?
No, I was going to agree with him. I noticed there's a big difference between fluke guys and bass guys. Like there's anglers out there that can catch everything, but when it comes to like specialty stuff, like there's guys that are really good at bottom fishing, and there's guys that are more mid column, upper water column, catching bass and other stuff like that.
And then throw fly fishing in, which is the entire different. I don't know. I think it's kind of to me, it's the most complex.
I think the only way to catch a tog on a fly would be to tie a tog jig to it, but I guess they can be caught.
You could
put a hermit crab to it.
Yeah, put a hermit crab on there. I did catch before a shark on a fly, but it wasn't really. It was on a fly rod, but I was not fly fishing for it. We were cruising by and trolling for tuna, and there was, I think it was a blue shark, and it was just kind of off to the side, up near the top, attacking something, and I just kind of tossed it over, and it just trolled right by its face, and I hooked it. So I actually trolled a fly rod and caught a blue shark on it. It wasn't very big. It was only maybe 3 feet, but yeah, I think you got to kind of cheat it if you're going to make it work. So.
No, I'm not going to say that doesn't count because, remember, it doesn't count towards what?
Trolling doesn't count. Trollfish don't
for
count.
me, it didn't count because it was trolling. Yeah, specifically because people can. I'm not a fan of trolling. And I say that
but you know what, dudes who catch a lot of fish are good at trolling. They know how to set those spreads out. They know the speed. They know there's a lot of shit that goes involved with that too. It's just not the shit that I'm going to do.
Right now, I troll in my kayak between spots almost 100% of the time. So we're going to move a mile to a new spot. I'm trolling. Ed's just looking at me like I'm an idiot. I'm trolling where there's probably no fish just because I'm moving, may as well be trolling. I will troll. It's just not as much fun to me as jigging. It's not as much fun as fly fishing. When people, back in the day, friends would say, hey, we're going to go out for tuna. It's like, oh, are we chunking? We're trolling. I don't know if I want to go and just sit on the boat and drive around in circles for the whole day. Yeah. It's just not my thing. Now, it's not my thing every week. I would still go out on trips, but back then I was going out multiple times a week, and it just wasn't my deal. So
yeah, we caught a couple stripers this year on the troll, but I don't know. It's I don't enjoy it. Like it's a lot of work, especially with the mojos trying to figure them out.
Oh man, they kill, they crush. But that's what I have to deal with too. And again, if you, go ahead, dudes. You guys can mojo, that's fine. But if you really think about it, man, we mark a lot of bait, and this is a thing too in the bay. You'd mark that bait and you'd mark the fish.
Yeah.
Why aren't they eating right now? And you'd see a mojo go by, and those mojos, those are stiff sticks. They're ripping the jaw out of those things. They're ripping things out of a school. That can turn the school off for sure. I mean, we've seen it. We're getting them pretty good. We may be dropping the flutter spoons or something, or a fly, and then a couple trolling boats go by. That's gonna halt the action for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing.
Oh, we're in 20 feet of water, but think about it. People are like, oh, we're in 20 feet of water. They're 20 feet down. Your boat's longer than 20 feet.
Right.
It's not that you're disrupting them.
Yep. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just get one fish going, and then the asshole fish next to it gets pissed off, and it starts going, and then next thing you know, everything's lighting up around it. So
yeah, we caught those bass in the fall on the troll, and we had more fun in the back bay throwing little spooks and catching little tiny rats. I mean, we had more fun doing that.
I like catching rats. I
do too. I love it.
It's so much fun. I don't like doing it just because, they're having to release them and hoping that they make it. But the rat size are pretty hardy fish, I think. They always kick off immediately as soon as you unhook them. All right. So Jason, we had one more question I wanted to get in before we kind of wrap this up. And this is from Bill. He's just asking, when you're fishing the Upper Delaware, what areas are you actually fishing? What does that mean?
Hey, Bill, I love it. Thanks for asking a question about it, man, because I love it up there. West Branch, so I don't know if you fellows are familiar. You have a West Branch, which comes from a desert reservoir, and you have the East Branch also coming from a reservoir. And they combine in Hancock and they make the main stem. So the West Branch probably the most popular because there's probably the most amount of fish in the West Branch. It's a little bit smaller. It's a lot of wading opportunities, a lot of drift boats. I don't really dig it, to be honest with you, because I don't want to drift down the river in my boat with my clients and have 15 other boats in the same. Not in the same stretch, but you see a lot of other boats. And the big thing is you're going to get in the way of, there's a fish rising down there, and there's a gentleman walking up to it. So you got to leave those wade anglers away. So, there's a lot of pressure. So I stay away from that. I also stay away from the East Branch. Also really awesome river. Definitely, the lower East Branch is a nice sized river. Great on a drift boat when the water's high, but it's a very temperamental river. Long story. I went too long here, but I love the main river. I love the big river. I'll fish it even almost down to Damascus, which people say is more marginal trout water. Two things I want to do. There's still bugs down there. I get away from the people, and you have a better experience. But that whole, if you're starting at the fly shop, maybe right before you get on the West Branch and go all the way down to Damascus is really, really good trout water. And April, May, even into June that's kind of where you'll find me when I'm floating that river.
Where would people find you if they want to see if you have any open dates left for either the freshwater or saltwater?
Yeah, it's so embarrassing. My website, I swear, is 18 years old. I haven't updated it. But email, or you can post it, or it's really social media. It's Blitzbound on both Facebook and on Instagram.
Right.
And it's my phone number's on there, and people know I'm pretty interested about booking. I think a little different from a lot of guides, with the exception of Montauk, where I book every day, twice a day for a month. In New Jersey and even on the river, I kind of know who wants to. I've been doing it for 20 years, so I have a list of guys or people will call me, hey, Jason, let me know about this week or, these couple of days. And I'll look at conditions on a Sunday and I'll make my calls. All right, well, you know what? I think our best days to catch fish in New Jersey it's going to be Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Because I look at the weather, I look at the wind forecast and stuff. Because I don't really dig boat rides, to be honest with you. Where I really have to give my guys the best chance. Delaware is pretty solid because when the bugs are going to be coming off for sure. But it's also very dependent on water flow as well. You want to have water in the river. It can go. The main stem of the Delaware can fish anywhere from 800 CFS, which is a little bit low, and my favorite height is 4,000 CFS, cubic feet per second. Yeah. So I like a lot of water in the river.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, I could talk about the river for a long time. It's really addicting. It's a really, really wonderful place.
I got to tell you, I love that answer that you just gave about how, here are the best days. Let's pick one that works for you. Because most guides will just say, I have this one open day, take it, and you're going no matter what, which I get, it's the business. But I don't fish weekends.
Not doing it. I'm not doing it. Maybe on the river I'd make an exception, but guys, if a guy really wants to present a fly and catch a fish, New Jersey's just gets a little bit too crowded.
Yeah,
and even the Delaware does. So I'm usually I'll fish during the week.
Yeah,
during the hot season.
Everybody wonders why I love having a weekday off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets dangerous on the water in a kayak. We spend half our time trying not to get run over. And I love ducking back in the creeks where nobody else can go. Yeah, you'll get a jet ski back there every once in a while, but not too often. So it's not, you can still hide on the weekends, but we have people I know, again, in the chat who won't fish, who refuse to fish on the weekends, as you do.
I want the best experience for my folks. I have to set things up as best I can. And you want the best experience. And sometimes I think, if I can avoid it, if a guy can fish us Monday instead of a Sunday, we'll do it. Yeah. Although I'll tell you what, Jersey Shore, great time to go out. And so I'm kind of going back on my word again, but Sunday afternoon, because everyone kind of burns out by they get up early Sunday morning. Everyone's done by 1 o'clock.
Yep.
You put your boat in at 2 o'clock, you have some real nice late afternoons. I think those fish get hungry too, because they've been beaten up so much all weekend and didn't feed. That's by Sunday evening, they're ready to chow down. It's pretty cool.
I do like fishing Sundays. Yep. And and not last year, it was the year before, when I was fishing mostly solo that year, because of the whole COVID thing and everything. I went, it was almost exclusively on Sundays because I got away from the boat traffic. I think you get away from the traffic, even in the summer on the way home, because everybody's already home by 8 o'clock. I'm just packing up at 9 at night and then heading back. Definitely agree with you there. So, are there any things that we missed that we should add in before we go?
Nah, I just went on too much, I think, but I enjoyed talking to you.
No, I don't think so.
We all like fishing. I love to talk about it. It's definitely an addiction, but it's also an addiction, as I like to say. We can talking about it is almost as good as going sometimes. So.
Yeah, it's what gets us through.
Thanks for having me.
It's what gets us through until the season opens, and then for the Monday nights as we go into the summer, it's what helps us ease ourselves back into the work week. Just talking about the previous weekend and everything. But Jason, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Lots of great information, and hopefully we can get you back on sometime, and we can go even further into some of these things. Especially as some of the folks that are in the chat who are also, by the way, addicted to fishing and have that same passion, as they get further into fly fishing this year. Maybe there's some intermediate to expert level questions that they may have. Hopefully I can get to the intermediate level and have some really good questions for you coming up.
Well, I appreciate anyone who's listening or watching or whatever, reach out. Send me an email. My information's on social media. I'll always return an email or give a call. It's just good karma, I think, for fishing. So, and I like to talk about it.
So there you have it. Really big thanks to Ed and to Captain Jason Dapra from Blitzbound for coming on and talking through saltwater fly fishing and how to get started in it. If you're really thinking about getting into saltwater fly fishing, this episode definitely had a lot of tips and tricks and information that will help you to get out there and have some success on the fly rod. Now, before I go, one more quick appeal to please, if you're not already following or subscribed to this podcast, that would be appreciated. And of course, a positive review on any of the platforms that you listen to would also be greatly appreciated and will help us to grow the podcast and draw more guests. So until next week, until the next episode, get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.